Here during the holiday time, you might want to impress your friends and family with your wine knowledge. The only problem is maybe you don't know that much about wine, but I have someone who does. Kevin Hart from Hart Cue, tasting room, wine shop, and Over the Rhine. Just an amazing place if you are into wine. Kevin, thanks so much for being with us.
You are welcome. It's a pleasure being here, and it's nice seeing all this wine behind me because we just got this tasting room open about 30 days ago.
Well, Kevin, let's talk about wine. I think this is one of these mysterious things that we like to think that we can impress our friends with our wine knowledge, but what is it that we should be looking for, especially if we're going to be taking wine as a gift over the holidays?
I really, with doing this over the last 15 or 20 years, it's unique seeing the way that wine is talked about, because at some point in time, we decided to turn wine into this idea of a luxury beverage, which I very much disagree with. A famous sommelier once said, and I love it, that wine should be looked at as a grocery. It's like milk or eggs or bread. And I love this. But what I really believe in, if you're getting down to the basics of wine, when we made it complicated is when we started focusing, I think, so much on varietals and regions and soil structures and winemaking techniques. And yes, all of this is important, but at the end of the day, what matters is how it drinks and does it bring you joy. And when I start looking at wine in a really kind of a big picture, I look at wine as body weight. Is it light bodied, medium bodied, full bodied? Is it really bright, meaning the acidity is higher? Is it tannins, kind of that tactile sensation you get on your mouth coming from kind of the structure of the wine and the way it's being made? But to me, what I look for parties, especially this time of the year, is what I kind of go to is crowd-pleasing wines. Because obviously everyone has their own personal preferences. If you know about wine or not, you can taste something and say, I like this. So what I always look for is wines, especially this time of the year, is this idea of crowd-pleasing. And when I say that, what I mean is wines that are not too light and also not too full. They're not too tannic and they're not too soft and fruity. They're not too acidic and they're not too dry. It's kind of this like perfect happy medium. And this is within white and red wine. And why I think that's so important for a holiday season is we're trying to make friends with everyone. We're trying to make everyone at the table, at the party, enjoying what they're drinking to have a good night. And I think these crowd-pleasing ideas of kind of like the happy medium in between the sides of flavor profile, it's perfect. It's like milk, if you want to go skim milk or whole milk, you just get 2% because it makes everyone happy. I think wine can be looked at very similar.
All right, before we get to the specifics on, what you think might be in that category, let me throw this out. We always think red wine, meat, white wine, fish. Is that the rule anymore, or is that just an old saw that can be thrown out?
I would love to throw that old saw out. And I think the reason is when I, working with a lot of the chefs in the city, everyone, I worked with, David Falk and the team at Boca Restaurant Group for a long time with John Herbert when Balls was open, Salzar at, his incredible restaurants down and Over the Rhine. What I really came to learn with getting into food and wine is I really believe when you're looking to finding this matching and flavor profile, really it's coming down to the things that are going with the protein. It's what's going with the main item on the dish. So if that is a piece of whitefish, is it being served with olives and capers and more like Mediterranean ingredients and even roasted tomatoes and so forth? Because once we start going into some of these flavors, very easily you can go fish with red wine. Same thing with steak. I think everyone has this perception in their head that steak needs red wine, and don't get me wrong, it can be delicious. But I think, one of the cheat sheet codes for great steakhouses is to take a piece of steak and put a big, thing of really delicious butter on top of it and let it kind of like rest. Well, then all of a sudden to me, your steak could actually pair with some white Burgundies or Chardonnays from California. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. So I do think that idea of red meat with red wine and white fish with white wine, it's a good starting point. There's no question, but I really am interested in the ingredients around it. The Italians are pretty adamant. If you have tomatoes on a plate whatsoever, it goes to red wine. So if you're doing a fish dish with some sort of like just slightly roasted and popped tomatoes in the oven, I think the dish could go to a really light red and be really delicious together.
So let's talk specifics. First of all, if I'm bringing a gift and I want something in the middle, should I ask the hostess what they want, Or how should I handle that?
I think the best gifts out there are something that connects the host with the person giving the bottle away. And to me, that should be a personal story. It should be something that you love that you're giving. Obviously, you want to make your the receiver happy. But I think there's something really personal when it's like, this is a bottle that I tasted at a restaurant, a wine bar, maybe even Hart Cue, but it's something that resonated with you and you're like, I want to share this experience with you. I want to share this story, because wine for me really is this idea of an experience. It's like music. If you're giving an album away, you give away an album you love. Same thing with clothes. It's something that you connect with, the fabric, whatever it is. There's an emotional attachment to it in a sensorial way, and I think wine has that capability of giving that journey. So to me, it's like, give something that makes you happy, and hopefully, therefore, when the recipient tastes it, open the bottle, it reminds them of you. It should be about that relationship. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what kind of wines that you would suggest that maybe, aren't too bold, aren't too sweet, aren't too tannic, that are kind of in that middle range that you talked about. What are some of your suggestions?
One of the things I really have fallen in love with lately for wine, for kind of this crowd pleasing idea, I'll recommend two different whites here. There's a white wine coming from the northern coast of Spain called Ria Spices is the area. This is actually the sliver land above Portugal, and it's wild because it looks like, the Pacific Northeast, these, rugged rocks sticking out into the water, mostly granite and soil. They're covered with salt. It's this crazy, maritime climate, facing the Americas. And the grape that grows there is called Albarino. And over the last 10 years, the quality level has just gone up and up and up. And the price point, the value proposition can be really amazing for these grapes. And what I love about them is they have enough brightness for the wines to be interesting and you keep wanting to come back to drink them. But the texture of the fruit is just so fresh. It's just so vibrant, and it has that like perfect mid-weight. It's, as I said earlier, that comparison with milk, it's that like perfect 2%. It's not too light, it's not too heavy. It's really this great crowd-pleasing wine, and everyone really seems to kind of love it. So one of my personal favorite producers is called Non Claire's. Their Albarino is I wouldn't say it's cheap, and I wouldn't say it's crazy expensive. It's right where it feels appropriate as a gift bottle that someone really kind of attaches to it. And I think it's really delicious. The other wine that I really enjoy for kind of being that crowd pleasing style is white Bordeaux. And it's unique because I think everyone thinks of Bordeaux as this like massive red wine category. You need to be, going to a fancy dinner with fancy steaks to really enjoy it. And I think it's really unique because where Bordeaux is positioned is really close to the water as well. And there's an incredible white wine culture there. And I think there's some delicious whites from Bordeaux that really hit that crowd pleaser, because the grapes that are going into it are a mixture between a grape called Semillon, which gives a little bit of a texture and richness to the wine. And then they blend in a small amount of Sauvignon Blanc, which gives some freshness and some grassy tones and some like citrus notes. And the wines are really delicious, and I think great crowd pleasers across the board. So a producer I love is called Pay Bon Homme. It's an old family that's been farming organically before organically was even a marketing trend for the grocery stores. And they're just a humble, working, farming family making some really delicious wines right now. Another great red that I think hits that kind of a comfort zone for price point is, I love Côte de Rhône when they're made well. I think there's a lot of bad Côte de Rhône in the marketplace, but Côte de Rhône is in the south of France in the Rhône Valley, and it's based off of a grape called Grenache. And there's this incredible softness and texture. And I went over to visit some of these farmers in 2019, right before we all got locked down. And I met this incredible little family named Domaine Gassier. And I think the wines for the value proposition, it's hard to beat. I don't know if there's a better red wine value out there for a Côte de Rhône for the quality level. And they're just delicious. They're soft. Everyone enjoys them. They're that perfect idea of a crowd pleaser. The other grape that I love for doing crowd pleasing is Barbera. Barbera is this grape that grows in northern Italy. And I think the wines are really great because a lot of the time you show up to a holiday party or a family gathering, and Italian fare is easy for that sort of stuff. So you see like meatballs and red sauce or lasagna, and Barbera just works with so much of that food. And it's fruity enough that you can just drink it without anything and just walk around the room and have fun with friends. And probably my personal favorite Barbero right now on the market is coming from Fratelli Alessandria, this small little producer in Barolo. And the wines are just delicious for the price point, and I love them.
So let's skip ahead now to New Year's Eve, and usually that means a bottle of bubbly. So what do you suggest, champagne, or do you suggest champagne? Do you go somewhere else?
I love champagne. I drink a lot of champagne, and I'm very lucky for that due to the business that I am in. My biggest thing with champagne and sparkling wine in general is some advice I give to everyone. As much as I love the beauty of a really narrow champagne flute, I would recommend drinking champagne out of a little bit of a bigger glass, like a white wine glass or something a little bit different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think champagne flutes are really tricky. Yes, they keep the carbonation happening, and that's great. But I'm sorry, if your wine's going flat by the time you finish your glass, you're not drinking quick enough. Let's be real here. And I think there's something really special about being able to smell the fruits. This is, as I said earlier, is agriculture, and there's something so pretty about champagne, of the way the fermentation happens, of the fruit, the way it's being grown. And drinking it out of a little bit of a bigger glass just makes the wine much more enjoyable. It really highlights the flavor profiles. And, again, to the same idea, I think, yes, we have a lot of big names that, people recognize, and there's a brand associated with them. But there is a massive renaissance happening in the real region of Champagne, which is a very special part of France that has to be where Champagne comes from, of these small farmers that are doing incredible wine for less money than the bigger brands, and the quality level just is at a whole different thing. Producer that I love there is called La Frère, tiny little champagne house. The winemaker's name's Aurelien, but I think his champagnes are so precise. But there's a lot of them. There's, Pierre Peters is another that I love, and Jay Lasselle, but these are true champagnes, and champagne can get very expensive. There's no question. So there are some other great spaces in the world. Whenever you see the term Cremant in France, it means that it's made like champagne, but not coming from champagne itself. So you can find some incredible Cremants being made throughout the entire country that are way less price point than champagne, and absolutely delicious. We have a great Cremant from Agnes Paquet, this rock star female winemaker in Burgundy, and I would rival her Cremant with true champagne, and it's about half the price any day of the week. And I think it's pretty delicious. We open that bottle on a regular basis here.
Well, there are all kinds of choices for the holidays, whether you want sparkling, red, or white. Can't wait to try a lot of these. Kevin Hart, Hart & Cue Wine Shop. If you have not been to Hart & Cue Wine Shop in Over the Rhine, please do so. It is a wonderful experience, whether you're there to taste, whether you're there to buy. It's a lot of fun. Kevin, happy holidays. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and enjoy your wine.
Happy holidays to you as well. Enjoy.